Planning board meeting. The meeting is called to order at 7:01 p.m. I am Anthony Brozier, Vice Chair of the Planning Board. I will be chairing the meeting until Chairman Jonathan Cantor arrives for the final agenda item. We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please will go open everywhere.
Start with a few announcements. First one, a reminder to silence your cell phones. Number two, I ask all those who speak this evening to please make sure they're speaking clearly into the microphone. Next item, our CPL planner, Liz Axelson, is no longer with CPL. Tonight we have Megan Zapotski. Did I say that right?
Zapotowski.
Zapotowski, I'm sorry.
No,
From CPL, who will be serving as our planning board planner for the Duchess Manor agenda item. Next item, few absences this evening. Jody Lindbergh is absent this evening. Since she's absent, I will appoint Kevin O'Connell as a voting member for the evening. Planning board member Ravi Ladala is also absent this evening. Since Ravi is absent, I will appoint alternate member Vijay Gopal as a voting member for the evening as well. As I mentioned, John Cantor will be absent for the first two items on the agenda. So for those first two items, we'll have 6 voting members. And then when John arrives for the Willow Lake item, we'll have a full 7. So the first item on the agenda this evening is a request for extension of approval for Duchess Storage Site Development Plan and Special Use Permit. Board to review the submission made by the applicant's representative on February 20th, 2026, which is a request for an additional 3-month extension of the resolution of conditional final approval adopted by the board on September 14th, 2023. The board recently granted a 3-month extension of the resolution of conditional final approval at the December 11th, 2025 planning board meeting, which shall expire on March 14th, 2026. And you will notice that the applicant is not present this evening. There is a reason for that. So for that, I will turn to our planning board attorney, Dominic Cordisco.
Yes, as is noted on the agenda, the applicant is requesting an additional 3-month extension, and with the retirement of my partner Steve Gaba, this was previously on his desk, and now it's been firmly on my desk, and unfortunately it's been buried on my desk. And so the fault relies entirely with me in not being able to finalize this on behalf of Duchess Storage. It's moving towards the top now of my pile. It's not at the top, but it's moving towards the top. And I have spoken with Nicholas Ward Willis on behalf of the applicant. He requested that, given that this would be a routine extension and also that they don't have any updates for the board, it was my update for the board, so that they're not present tonight, which I suggested to him. I needed to fall on my sword. He does not need to fall on his sword. In any event, they're requesting a 3-month extension, which they are entitled to, and I would recommend to the board that you grant. And if they have to come back again, I will be a deeper shade of red if that is the case, and I hope that that will not be.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from board members?
No.
Okay, so with that, I will ask if I have a motion to approve a further 3-month extension of the resolution of conditional final approval for Duchess Storage. I believe that would be to June 14th, 2026.
So moved.
Second.
Felix moves it, Kevin seconds. Any discussion?
No.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries 6-0. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda under project reviews, Duchess Manor site redesign and restoration, site development plan, special use permit, and historic structures and site regulations certificate of appropriateness. The board to review the submission made by the applicant's representative on February 25th, 2026. Also to review a draft Part 2 full EAF, full environmental assessment form, and a draft Part 3 EAF. So with that, I will welcome the applicant team, Helen Mach and Amy Casale.
And Aaron Werner.
Aaron Werner, yes.
Thank you. Good evening. Helen Mach from Mincer Mach on behalf of HHFT Inc. in connection with the Duchess Manor Restoration and Site Redesign Project. So we're here tonight to request that the board review the draft EAF Part 2 and authorize preparation of a resolution with a negative declaration of environmental significance. We have one other request tonight, which I'll get to, but first, I just want to take a step back and quickly review the project's evolution. At the last meeting, we had a deck presentation where we took you through that evolution, but just quickly as a reminder, it includes significant changes to the parking area location on the site, as well as the number of parking spaces, a reduction in the area of disturbance since it was first presented to this board back in December 2024, a decrease in the number of mature trees to be removed from the site, increase in the landscape buffer, and increased number of matured trees. So as we said in our February 25th, 2026 submission to you, the record before you is extensive, and it includes a full EAF Part 1, a supplemental narrative to that EAF, letters from New York State Parks stating that there is no adverse effect and that this is not segmentation, a traffic impact study, a natural resources assessment, a report on invasive species management, and responses to public comments that were made at the public hearing, and frankly, before and after the public hearing. At the last meeting, questions were raised about land use consistency and the parking. And so in our February 25th submission, we addressed those questions, but in some, the proposed use is permitted pursuant to a special permit in the zoning district, and it is consistent with the surrounding land use pattern and community character. Also in our memo, we explain that the parking is accessory, and we've provided legal support for that conclusion, including a case from the New York State Court of Appeals, the highest court, and examples of other visitor centers that have parking on site that are also in residential areas, as well as the town's own zoning code, which provides that when a land use does not fall within one of the categories listed in the code, reasonable and appropriate parking is determined by the planning board in the context of its site plan and special permit review. We've said that parking on site will be managed by HHFT staff, and that there'll be a gate so that the overflow parking area will be controlled. So for all these reasons, we submit that the record before this board supports a negative declaration of environmental significance under SECRA. And we ask that tonight, after you review the draft EAF Part 2, that you authorize that a resolution be prepared to that effect to be considered at the April board meeting. I mentioned earlier that we have one other request. So we're also asking you tonight to authorize preparation of a draft certificate of appropriateness approval for consideration at the April meeting. And the reason for that is that the certificate of appropriateness is a critical path item in order for the project to open by the target date of June 2027. The only way to meet the June 2027 target date is to have the Historic Resources team on site by the end of April and to begin their work to alter the Duchess Manor building. So that is our request, and happy to answer any questions. I would like to ask Aaron Werner from AKRF to provide just a brief clarification on 2 items that are in the EAF Part 2 before you go through it. But I'm happy to answer any questions at this time or come back for questions.
Oh, we can go to Aaron for now.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Helen. Aaron Werner, AKRF. Nice to see everybody again. Yeah, so we're totally in agreement with most of the Part 2. We saw the draft. We agree with the negative declaration checkbox on Part 3. Just a couple of points on 2 questions where there was moderate to large potential impacts identified. That would be under number 1, E and F, impact on land. For E, that has to do with construction that continues for more than 1 year in multiple phases. This is technically a single-phase project. It's about 12 months of active construction. We put 17 months down on the EAF Part 1, but that extra time accounts for interior finishes on the manor, landscape plantings, the less intense type of work during the construction schedule, but the bulk of the construction will be in that 12-month time frame. And in the EAF workbook guidance that the DEC has put out, it does say that if a project would be completed within 1 year of approval in one phase, there will be no related impact, so check no or small impact. That's the guidance from DEC, so we were just hoping that that could be considered for that question. The second one was F, having to do with increased erosion from physical disturbance or vegetation removal. For that one, again, we have a SWIP that will be implemented with the project. I have some notes from the civil engineer on the project that talks about how the soil will be stabilized during construction and when it's in operation. A lot of the work's happening in an area that's already disturbed. According to boring and test pit results, the soil characteristics present on the site are naturally more resistant to erosion. The sequencing of the construction will limit active disturbance areas and reduce erosion potential. There'll be temporary measures installed prior to any ground disturbance. As work progresses, temporary controls will be replaced with permanent ones, ensuring uninterrupted protections. Again, there's a full SWIP developed for the project. It's subject to inspections by the town. There's actually less impervious being done with the project. So I think we feel that that's a no or small impact as well with related to erosion. And there's a further question down in the Part 2, and I think it's under the water courses section where the erosion category was checked no or small impact. So we just feel there should be some consistency there. And that's it. Otherwise, we'll sit back and listen to you guys go through that Part 2. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Before we get to the EAF Part 2 and Part 3, we did have 2 memos from our consultants. I do want to go through those first, and then we'll go through the EAF Part 2 and Part 3. So first, I'll go to Dennis Lynch of MJ Engineering to review their memo from March 6th.
So we have our March 6th memo. Basically, everything that was submitted was for the Part 2 and 3, so our memo is very brief with 2 comments. There are some outstanding comments from our February 9th meeting, or February 9th memo. However, most of those are minor and technical in nature, so there's nothing that would stop the board from making a motion to draft a neg deck tonight.
Okay. Any questions for Dennis? No.
It's nice to have it brief.
Next, we'll go to Megan for the CPL memo written by Liz. It was dated February 26, 2026.
So similarly, many of the comments in Liz's memo have been addressed. The remaining comments are technical, mostly relating to small modifications to the site plan set, including labeling and consistency throughout the set. So we concur that there's no reason that this letter would prevent you from taking action tonight.
Okay. Any comments on the CPL memo?
Nope.
Okay. So with that, I will ask Megan as well to take us through the full environmental assessment form for Part 2 first. I know the applicant team did mention a few areas to look for, so we can talk about those as well. Yep.
Great. So please stop me if anybody has questions or if you feel an answer should be completed differently. The first section, impact on land, we had checked yes. And we noted small impacts to B and C, which the proposed action may involve construction on slopes of 15% or greater, and the proposed action may involve construction on land where bedrock is exposed or generally within 5 feet of existing ground surface. As the applicant has already stated, we checked moderate to large impact for the proposed action may involve construction that continues for more than 1 year or in multiple phases, and the proposed action may result in increased erosion, whether from physical disturbance or vegetation removal, including treatment from herbicides.
Yeah, so I know there was a question about E, about the construction continuing for more than 1 year or in multiple phases. It is a one-phase project, but the activities on the site, including, some of the landscaping around the site, there is land disturbance associated with that, however minor it may be.
Correct. I would lean towards keeping that moderate to large impact. If it was strictly interior fit-ups that were going to be lasting after that 12 months, that might be a different story. But considering site work will still be ongoing after that 12 months, I would recommend that answer stay the same.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I was thinking as well. So, any thoughts from the board?
I agree.
Okay. And then for F, about the increased erosion, whether from physical disturbance or vegetation removal, they do have a SWIP that was provided. They are, providing erosion sediment controls. I don't know if there's any, feedback you would have on that being checked one way or the other.
I think the only thing that I'll say about that is that there is, according to their EAF Part 1, almost 6 acres of disturbance happening on the site, a lot of that being ground disturbance outside of the area of the structure that exists. I know the applicant had brought up that under impacts on surface water, we had checked that soil erosion would be a small or no impact. And I'll just note that that's specifically pertaining to the effects it might have on surface water and not necessarily the land, which is what this section is discussing.
Okay. So, I mean, I would be inclined to keep that as it is on the form. I don't know if there's any thoughts from board members on that. Okay. We can move on to section 2.
So section 2, we have checked no impact. Section 3, impacts on surface water, which we just discussed. We checked no or small impact for the proposed action may cause soil erosion or otherwise create a source of stormwater discharge that may lead to siltation or other degradation of receiving water bodies. As previously stated, they do have a SWIP in place. Additionally, Liz had checked the other impacts box as no to small impact, that the project will involve the application of herbicides and other measures to reduce invasive species approximately 350 feet from the Hudson River shoreline.
Okay. Any questions from board members on that? No. All right.
Okay. Section 4, we have checked yes. And we have indicated that there would be a no or small impact for the proposed action will involve the application of herbicides or possibly pesticides in an unidentified area on the site and may have the potential to introduce contaminants to groundwater or an aquifer.
Okay. Everybody good with that? Okay.
Number 5, impacts on flooding. We had checked no impact. Number 6, impacts on air. We had checked no impact. Number 7, impact on plants and animals, we had checked yes. And then no or small impact for site disturbances proposed on a potential habitat for the following endangered or threatened species: bald eagle, timber rattlesnake, and Atlantic and short-nosed sturgeon. And the following rare species of special concern would be the New England cottontail and the yellow corydalis. Impact on agricultural resources, we had checked no. Number 9, impact on aesthetic resources, we had checked no. Impact on historic and archaeological resources, we had checked no, and that is due to the 2024 letter from SHPO stating that there was no impact. Section 11, impact on open space and recreation, we had checked no. Section 12, impact on critical environmental areas, we had checked no. Section 13, impact on transportation, we indicated that there was an impact. For E, a no or small impact for the proposed action may alter the present patterns of movement of people or goods. And then additionally, the project's parking and shuttle service will facilitate access to nearby trails to reduce hazardous parking and walking on the Route 9D shoulders, which Liz indicated would be a benefit.
I have a question. They were going to be moving a driveway. Does that impact this at all?
That's up
Because
to
they're going to
the,
have the one that they're there, and then they're going to move the other one somewhere. We have not really seen where that was for the impact.
I don't know that that would be a concern for the EAF Part 2. As it's Route 9D, that would be state or county.
That would be the
County permit that would be in charge of checking for things like site distance and granting them that application for a new curb cut. I don't see a section here that that would fit into, but if you had a suggestion, I'm open.
Just on the discussion, they were told it was going to move. We were never told exactly where it was going to be,
Okay.
and it's on.
Well, I mean, E is the proposed action may alter the present pattern of movement of people or goods, so
Well, I just
Fit-
thrown it in there, so I just
fit under
didn't know
there.
where it would be.
I think it would fit under that.
Okay. We can address that in the negative declaration if the board chooses to take that option.
If it helps. We have talked to DOT about this, so it is a state road, and their concern is having too many curb cuts in the same area, but because we're closing one and just basically shifting it, instead of, we're not adding, we're just shifting. So they didn't have a concern with that.
Just throwing it out.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's something that could just be captured in the narrative that goes with it, and I think, at least for me, I don't know if you agree, but I think the present pattern of movement,
That's fine.
yeah. Okay, yeah.
Okay, great. Section 14, impact on energy, we had checked no. Section 15, impact on noise, odor, and light, we had checked no. Section 16, impact on human health, we had checked no. Section 17, consistency with community plans, we had checked yes. And Liz indicated a small impact, no or small impact for the project will have a beneficial impact as it is consistent with and will implement the goals and objectives of the Town of Fishkill Comprehensive Plan Update. Section 18, consistency with community character, we had checked yes and had noted a beneficial small impact for the proposed action is inconsistent with the predominant architectural scale and character. And she had written, the proposed action will restore a historic structure for recreational/community use.
Okay. Any questions on any of those?
No.
Or anything else in the EAF Part 2? Okay. So then we have the EAF Part 3. So the EAF Part 3 is just the summary of the...
Correct. It's just the form, and then the negative declaration, if the board takes that action, will go through the narrative aspect.
Okay. So any questions from board members on this document?
No.
Okay. So with that, I will ask the board, I guess actually before I do that, I'll ask Dominic, at this point, we'll just motion to see if,
Yes, motion to adopt the Part 2 as presented.
okay. Do I have a motion to adopt the EAF Part 2 for Duchess Manor site redesign and restoration, site development plan, special use permit, historic structures, and site regulations? I have Fred, do I have a second?
Second.
We got VJ, I guess. Any discussion?
I have one. I'm a little bit confused on the section, in section 2 of the EAF, the impact, the environmental impact was no, but there was a small potential impact earlier associated with the aquifer. Could you just review that one?
Sure, let me see here. So section 4, impact to groundwater, we have touched on the aquifer, saying the proposed action will involve the application of herbicides or possibly pesticides in an unidentified area on the site and may have the potential to introduce contaminants to groundwater or an aquifer. This site is in the aquifer protection overlay zone.
Right. So is that consistent with no environmental impact?
We had checked small impact.
Yes, but yes impact. It's small.
It's a small impact, but it's a yes impact, okay.
It
We
is a yes.
acknowledged it,
correct.
yes, and then if the board felt that it was moderate or large, we would have that discussion as to whether or not we felt this is essentially our document in identifying the environmental, so that's how we,
Yeah, I just wanted to I just wanted to clarify that point because I remember no environmental impact, but potential small impact on the aquifer. And it seems to me there's potentially a small problem there, but.
Right, and we can address that in the narrative, but that section was checked, yes.
Okay.
any other discussion? All right, I had a motion and I already had a second, so all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries 6-0. So with that, I'll turn to Dominic, I guess, for,
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Don't you need to authorize the signature
Yes.
of the Part 3 as well?
did I, oh.
You just adopted
Oh.
the 2, Part 2.
Okay.
Correct, but I think they were about to go through the Part 3
I'm just
right
gonna-
now.
Yeah.
So I second motion for to authorize and, okay. So I'll ask if there's a motion to adopt the EAF Part 3 for Duchess Manor site redesign and restoration, site development plan, special use permit, and historic structures and site regulations, and authorize the chair to sign.
The motion.
All right,
Second.
Brett and Bob, any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? That motion carries 6-0. Okay, so we've adopted the EAF Part 2 and Part 3. I did want to turn to Dominic Cordisco at this point, because my understanding was now that we've adopted those documents, the board would take one other action tonight, which would be to authorize the drafting of the...
Of a detailed negative declaration. You know, that would be more expansive than what's included in Part 3 EAF.
Okay.
And also, you know, and then separately from that, the applicant has requested that the board consider a draft of the certificate of appropriateness for the historic structure. This is not relating to site plan approval. It is one of the jurisdictions that's before the board. It can proceed separately from site plan approval because it relates to just the structure itself and not the overall site improvements.
And that would be a draft resolution of what would be the
Yes, it would be actually a draft certificate, which we've prepared on other projects, and so we could certainly prepare that draft. It makes certain findings consistent with that section of the town code. I think it's Article 14B, and I would be comfortable preparing that at this time for the board to consider at your April meeting. There's nothing in the code that prevents you from considering that separately from the site plan approval, which the applicant is not requesting at this time. And in fact, the code does provide that after the public hearing, there's a 62-day time frame where the board should be adopting the certificate. This public hearing was concluded in January, at the January 8th meeting. There's no default approval. I just want to hesitate to say that. It's not as though, on the 63rd day, the certificate itself is deemed automatically granted. But you certainly don't want to be dilatory and set aside something that could be acted upon, especially since the applicant is requesting.
If we do this, when can they physically start to tear down?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'd be happy to answer that, I think, at the next meeting. Because I want to be sure that I give you an accurate answer in light of the fact that, the site plan elements cannot be constructed, so without site plan approval. And we want to make sure that we have a clear demarcation of what is going to occur with the certificate of appropriateness, but nonetheless, drafting it doesn't oblige you to actually adopt it at the April meeting. It just allows you to consider it.
Thank you.
Dominic, are there any other motions that this board should consider tonight? That would
Those would be
basically
the two at this point: drafting of a detailed negative declaration, as well as the drafting of a certificate of appropriateness for the historic structure.
Okay. Any further discussion on those items? All right, then I will ask if there is a motion to authorize our consultants to prepare a draft negative declaration for Duchess Manor, site redesign and restoration, site development plan, special use permit, historic structures and site regulations for the board's consideration at the April 2026 Town of Fishkill Planning Board meeting.
So moved.
Bob moved it.
Second.
BJ second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. And then I will ask if there is a motion to have our consultants draft a certificate of appropriateness for the historic structure at Duchess Manor for
So
the
moved.
April 2026 meeting.
I'll move that.
Still moved. Felix moves that. Kevin seconds that. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay, that motion carries 6-0 as well. Okay. All right, I don't believe this board will be considering any other actions for this evening, so I don't know if there's any other items you would like to discuss with the board, or are we all set?
We're all set for now. Thank you very much. We'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good evening.
Thanks, Megan.
Thanks, Megan.
Thank you very much.
We'll just give it a second here. Our chair is arriving at his seat.
Exactly. Good evening, everyone. Let me just get my stuff together here. All right. Good to see you all. Good to see you.
Welcome.
Thank you. All right, so the next item on the agenda, and my only item tonight, is Willow Lake Partners, Site Development Plan, Special Use Permit, and Freshwater Wetlands Water Course Water Body Permit. Board to review the submission made by the applicant's representative on February 25, 2026. Welcome.
Good evening.
How are you all tonight?
Just fine.
Good.
Arriving at a planning board meeting when it's still light is a real pleasure, right? Good evening. My name is Jennifer Van Tile from Cuddy and Fader. We're happy to be here tonight to discuss primarily the new materials that we provided to you in response to comments. We have a number of members of the team here tonight to address any questions that you have and to concentrate particularly on the visual materials relating to the site, and also going through the new information that we provided to the board with respect to the draft Part 3. And we're happy that we have some amount of time tonight, and we want you to make sure that you're free to answer any questions or have any discussions that you'd like to have. But nonetheless, we're trying to be reasonable with your time, and would just emphasize that in addition to what we present tonight, we've also had numerous submissions over the past months that are part of the materials that are before the board. So with that, we hope that at the end of the discussion tonight, you will feel comfortable asking your consultants to prepare a draft Part 2 and Part 3 of the EAF for your meeting next month. And with that, I'll turn it over to Zach, who will lead the presentation.
Thank you. And then, Anthony, we have 7 voting members, if I understand. Okay.
We have
Thanks.
6, you make 7, so
All
we're
right.
full board.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. Zach Camp from Dynamic Engineering. I'll touch upon the different documents we've submitted, and then I'll go into a little bit of detail on each of them, and then, of course, happy to answer any questions the board may have. We resubmitted 2 documents that were previously provided and slightly updated. That was the Aquifer Protection Compliance Letter, as well as the Chapter 82 Water Bodies Compliance Letter. In response to a lot of the public comments we received regarding sightlines, we provided 4 additional sightline exhibits. Those were sightlines taken along Van Wyck Lake Road, 1 vantage point for each of the 4 parking lots, and each of those exhibits included how the landscaping will mature at its install date at year 5 and at year 10 to show the minimized impact of those parking lots and retaining walls. To go along with those exhibits, we provided plant palettes for each of the parking lots to show you what plants are going to be located where along our linear frontage. We also included a colored retaining wall exhibit that shows the different heights of the walls in a more approachable and easy to understand manner, noting again that the tallest portion of the wall only comprises about 5% of the total wall length. We also provided an update to our EAF Part 3 supplement that was previously submitted back in November. That document included significant commentary based upon comments received from the board as well as members of the public. The sections that were updated specifically included transportation. To remind the board, we've previously provided a traffic impact statement and in correspondence with the town professionals. They are in agreement that the traffic will not result in any significant impact to adjacent roadways nor site driveways. We included additional narrative on the endangered species. We did provide a biodiversity study back with our original submission this past summer. We did include additional commentary on the fisher cat. There is no presence of that on site, as well as some narrative on utilizing bird safe class that was a public concern. There's an updated section on groundwater as well. As I noted previously, we provided a commentary on the town aquifer protection. There is a restrictive bedrock layer that we've discussed at previous meetings that prevents surface water from entering the groundwater, so our project will not have adverse impacts on nearby wells. And then, as I discussed earlier, the aesthetic resource section, which included additional visual and sightline renderings. I would like to turn it over to our landscape architect to touch on the plantings.
Good.
if you want the plan palette, we can do it also. Just do control. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Marla Roller, and I'm a landscape architect with Dynamic Engineering, and I prepared these landscape plans, and I wanted to give you a little overview tonight. I know in previous meetings there was some discussion about views into the site and views along Van Wyck Lake Road, so we did a few extra enhanced exhibits so we could kind of give you a flavor of what that's going to look like. Thought that would be a little bit easier than just kind of talking about it. So this one exhibit shows the 4 vantage points, as Zach mentioned, from the road to the 4 parking lots, and then we prepared an additional exhibit showing each one in more detail. This first location, the closest one before you, when you pass the driveway of the site, you can see this shows the initial planting time. The trees that are planted in the front of it include an evergreen spine along the wall, fronted by some deciduous trees to soften that and create that consistent line along the road frontage, and it's supplemented with underplantings of shrubs. This is year 1, where the wall will still be slightly visible, and then when you move to year 5, you can see the enhanced size of the plants, and then when you go to year 10, you can see that the whole parking lot and the wall will no longer be visible, which is actually not really visible when you look back at the year 5 planting. So we selected plants that were native. Native plants will inherently do better and grow well in this environment. It'll be a consistent look that you see now, only better going down Van Wyck Lake Road. So the goal was to fill in with everything looking an enhanced native habitat that you have now, and then buffer that wall so that you won't even see it really by year 5. This was the first.
Can you give us an idea, as you're going along, give us an idea of the mix between coniferous and deciduous types of plants?
Yes, absolutely. So this was year 10. This is the second vantage point down the road, which has some existing vegetation in front of it. Then we're going to interplant behind it. You can see we graded up to minimize the height of the wall, and again remembering that the wall height is a little bit extended because we're giving a parapet above the pavement so that you're not seeing the cars themselves, you're seeing the wall. So the cars won't be visible, you're seeing the wall, and then in front of that we have the planting. So this is the most extended part of the wall that you would see in that small percentage that Zach mentioned earlier. This is the year 0 at planting. Year 5, you can see that we specifically selected here the fastest growing evergreens and plants so that this part of the wall would be covered by year 5. And then again, year 10, it really fills in and becomes very discreet that you won't see behind it. Later down, we have an existing, again, still existing trees that we're saving along the wall. Year 1, this is a much lower wall, but again, has a parapet to hide the cars. We have some evergreens, deciduous. I'll get to the plant palette right after this. This is year 0. You can see by year 5, these are already well above that wall. And again, year 10, it's a very mature landscape already. The last one, a little bit the furthest one down, the last parking lot down the road that's proposed. Again, there's some existing trees and shrubbery that's being saved in the front, fronting that with a double row of evergreens here. You can see that there's a little bit of visual wall from the initial planting. This is year 5 that's already covering everything. And then again, year 10, significantly mature. So the...
Which is the new driveway one? 3 or 4?
I'm sorry, sir?
Which one is the new, right now you have 3 driveways, you're going to have 4.
There's 2 existing.
2 existing.
2 driveways.
The one new is just to the left of the 3rd.
So that's this one here?
I can go back to the original drawing. This is the new driveway. Yep.
So here's, you can see on the screen, this is the new driveway.
Yeah, but you're showing them to us on this. The first one you're showing us is the one with the main driveway coming in, correct?
Correct.
Sideline G, sideline
That's
E is
the
the
one that
first
has
one.
the...
That has the posts, the pillars that are
posts
existing there
you're
now,
showing us.
correct.
Then we're going east.
And then you're going,
East
correct,
you're showing us,
correct.
and 1 and 2 are existing,
Yes,
Yes.
and 3 and 4 are
yes.
Just
Three.
There's only,
There's no,
And-
There's only 3 driveways, the
Oh, that's what I said. Oh, all right, there are only 3.
total, correct?
Total.
There's only one new one being proposed.
Okay.
The exhibit G and H are the additional 2 sightlines for that new lot.
Yep.
Off of the 3rd driveway.
Yeah, it's
Got it.
one driveway, it's just two different views of that same parking area.
Do you by any chance have a view of Exhibit G the other way? Where you're going to fill that gap with presumably some sort of native plant?
Across the street?
yeah, yeah.
That gap that is open towards the swimming.
Yeah,
neighbor's swimming
I think for the board, and good evening, everyone, Alex Friedman, one of the partners at Willow Lake. I think for the board, we have not yet really finalized what we're going to do with the neighbors and ultimately whether or not they do want those plantings and what we're going to do there. So I think at this time it might be inappropriate for us to make that assumption that that's what they want. We do want to continue those conversations and make sure that we are providing a solution that is in line with what they've asked. We're happy to provide that solution, as we've said on the record, but we haven't gone so far as to create a sightline exhibit for a solution that we have not agreed to. I think that would be premature at this time.
Thank you.
Plant palettes, yes. So we'll bring up the plant palettes, which is just a sample of the plants that are exactly in that line of sight, not necessarily encompassing everything that's along the road, but I can give you an idea of what else is included that may not be in these plant palettes.
I think before we go to that, not to jump out of order, we did have one comment. This is our comment number 12 from the retaining wall exhibit, which had to do with, I believe it was sightline F, which is the highest point, which we were recommending, since that was an 18 to 20 foot tall wall, possibly stepping that wall. I guess if you can go to like the cross-section that you were showing there, there seemed to be existing vegetation, and then it seemed like you're putting a pretty robust landscape palette in front of that. Is there any way, I mean, is there a possible way of stepping it to reduce the size, or is this what you're showing? I mean, you might have to take down more trees. I don't, is there any way we can just explore, or basically what you're proposing based, is it possible, and if not, what are you doing, or what the proposed plan is to do to kind of screen that wall and that particular section, just where that's that highest?
Yeah, I'm going to let them speak a little bit more about the actual landscaping that's going in front of that and what ultimately it will hide in terms of the vantage point. I did just want to discuss briefly that we have at this point had all members of the zoning board attend site visits and stand before that exact location of where that wall is going to go. So everyone has a very clear understanding. You know, when we say 21 feet, obviously it sounds large, but really it's to sort of cover this outcrop of rock that's already existing. And so to the extent that we can create a little bit of a step back situation, I'll let the team comment, but I do just want to let the board know that that's been observed.
And excuse me, is that by the big boulder?
There's a boulder that currently, as it sits, is about 17 feet already in that exact location. So our wall is coming in front of that. It's not a new 21-foot height out of the ground. It's like this big monstrous wall.
Yeah.
And to that, it's a great question. And so we looked at that as an option. We did grade up to the extent that we could and still have a plantable slope to minimize the size of that wall. There is existing trees that are mature along the road in front of that location that we really wanted to save. And by keeping the wall a singular face of the wall, it gives us more planting space to fit larger trees. If we split the wall and had to do 6 feet out, let's say, you have, like a dead men situation behind the wall for the stability of the wall. So you don't really have the ability to plant big things because there's not root space down there for something to grow really big.
So if we just have the wall going back and all the dead spaces, the deadman and stability of the wall goes back behind the parking lot where we're not going to need trees, everything in front of the wall has a good root base for planting bigger trees who are going to grow well and do well. If you plant something in a planter, which is essentially what that would end up being in that in-between space between the two walls, you're limiting the amount of space that that plant has to grow. So you're not, that secondary space between the first wall and the second wall where you really want it to be big, you're kind of handcuffing the plant, giving it minimal earth to really grow well. So we felt that by keeping it one single wall and giving it the most really good natural space to grow into the ground, you're going to get a much bigger opportunity to grow bigger trees.
Okay, and that kind of addresses my comment on 12, so thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question. Color of the wall.
Color of the wall. That's a good question. We haven't yet come to that. Look, the one thing I'll say is that from a design perspective, right, all of our choices have been to match the natural elements and surrounding of the environment. You've probably seen some renderings that encapsulate a lot of stone and material that is more natural to the space. We intend to do the same thing here. So we will find something that blends well and is not, outwardly visible. I'm not putting a bright red wall or a yellow wall in front of those trees. No pink walls.
Which you won't see by year 10 in front and behind all this landscaping anyway. That up here, yeah. Okay, so then of those sections, we created little mini plant palettes. And again, this is just in the exact line of where that line cuts. To the right or left of that, there's additional varieties of plants. So this is right where that main entrance is, where the stone pillars are now, and that pretty stone wall is there now. This is right to the right, just beyond that. So we have along the back of the wall, there's always going to be an evergreen spine behind everything else. So here in that one spot, we have a combination of the Jersey Night holly and the Cedar Hill holly. So the Jersey Night being the male holly that pollinates, the Cedar Hill female holly to get the berries. So they're the backdrop there. Then we have the ornamental trees in front of that are the river birch, which is a native birch with the peeling bark. It's very pretty. And then underneath all that, we have some Snow Queen hydrangea, which is going to give you lots of seasonality, gets the beautiful red fall color, the beautiful long flowering summer flowers that you can see in this picture, and then supplemented on the side by, this is a native grass, it's a new variety called Niagara Falls, that gives you that beautiful weeping palette. So this is just in that one spot. This is a group, these are all native plants, and so you have the evergreen backdrop of the holly, in front of that you have the ornamental tree, and then underneath and around all of those, you have things like hydrangeas and grasses. So in addition to this, further down, we have trees like dogwoods and redbuds, other understory trees, oak trees, sycamore trees, big oak trees, big maple trees, things that are the native trees that are here now, and then we're underplanting with the ornamental trees, the birches, the redbuds, the dogwoods, which will flower and give you the pretty bark and everything else, beautiful fall color, the berries, good habitat for the animals, and then under that, we have shrubs like the oak leaf hydrangea, we have bottlebush bruckeye, we have clethra, like lots of flowering things, lots of pretty fall color. So it's a whole big variety of things that are going to be woven in between here. But behind all of that, directly in front of the wall, will always be an evergreen. So you really, at some point, won't see Alex's beautiful wall.
Is there going to be any planting on the parking side of the, or is just going to be? Because I see that one picture you just sort of you're parking right up against the wall. Is there going to be a gap in there?
On this particular parking lot, there is a small grass area, but on the other parking lots, we really tried to minimize the overall land disturbance. So we queued the parking and stacked the parking to really minimize that disturbance. So it's all paved and it's all being operated to minimize the footprint and impact.
Okay, so we're going to have to take care of the water problem.
All of the parking lots have a number of inlets, and there's actually underground stormwater systems beneath each of the 4 parking lots.
Thank you.
As you go back into the parking lots, the perimeters around the sides are planted, and in between the parking lots, there's space that's planted. So there is greenery around and in the middle of the parking lot. But we did try to minimize the footprint. This is, go ahead.
Just to provide a little bit more commentary on the stormwater. So each of those 4 parking lots include underground storage tanks. They're connected in series, so from east to west. They're holding tanks, holds a significant amount of water. That water then comes across the site into the parking lots 1 and 2 on the western side of the site. After the water leaves the westernmost parking lot, it enters a very large filter practice, which treats the water for water quality. Think of it as a really large Brita that treats a very high flow of water. That water is then controlled and trickled out and released slowly out to the west. So none of the runoff from the parking lots will come across and enter Van Wyck Lake Road and exit through the north.
This was the second vantage point that we looked at toward the next parking area. And this one in particular had some Idlewild red cedar, another native, a little bit more narrow of an evergreen, but equally tall. Green giant arborvitae, which is the fastest growing evergreen, which is planted where we had some of the higher heights of the wall. Again, and these are all, we chose things that would have deer resistance because we know that that's an issue here and in so many places. So we're picking things that we know are going to survive that condition. Here we have Frank's red maple, like it's tremendous fall color, another native. And then for ornamentals here, we have a rainbow pillar serviceberry, which is a white flowering native plant, berries in the fall. And then this is a northern burgundy viburnum, which again is a flowering plant for the late summer and spring, and then also gets berries. So these are all also very habitat-friendly plants. The third location that we had, looking at further down here, we have pyramidal white pine, and we chose pyramidal because they stay a little bit narrower than the very big normal white pine, but it also does not lose its branches. A lot of people don't like the white pine because after a while when they mature, they get a little bit leggy and open. The pyramidal variety of that stays very tight and its branches stay to the ground, so it gives you an actual screen that's maintained. We are repeating some holly in this particular location. The shade tree here is a beautiful big swamp white oak that's native, and then again some more serviceberry, and there's also an Aurora dogwood, hybrid dogwood. We're using some hybrid dogwoods here because the regular native dogwood does have some disease that comes with it, and so we'd rather do this. Rutgers invented a bunch of hybrid ones that are very disease resistant, so we're proposing the hybrid varieties for that reason.
Where are the telephone poles? Are they on your side of the road or across the street?
There are some on both sides.
How are you handling them on your side?
So telephone poles are located out in the right-of-way and not in our property line, so they will not be disturbed.
Well, I was more concerned with the trees growing.
We set them back far enough and picked certain varieties that we know we're not going to have as wide a canopy, or put them where we know that they wouldn't be a problem with that. This is the third one. Oh, then I have to go back. Okay, third one. Then I think I skipped the second one. I skipped the second one. I'm going to backtrack. This is the second one, and I clicked too fast. The second one, we have the location here has the green giant arborvitae. This was, I think, the tallest section of the wall. And this has more shade trees. We have a wider area here. And in the front of this, I think you can see out here in the front, this is where there is the existing trees that we wanted to save, which is another reason why we wanted it to be one wall so we weren't taking up so much space. So we have more room to plant. So we have the existing trees out here that we're saving that are mature and tall now. In front of that, we have more tall shade trees, including things like the swamp white oak, American sycamore. Those get very, very large. And then the spine behind, against the wall, is the green giant arborvitae. Those are the fastest growing. Once they get their feet established, after year 1 or 2, they grow about 3 feet a year. So they're very quick to establish to be a very tall tree. And then the underplanting underneath there, we have the Aurora dogwood and the bottlebush buckeye. And the buckeye is so dense in its habit that even when it loses, it's deciduous, but even when it loses its leaves, it's like similar to a forsythia, where you have a dense forsythia hedge. Even when it's defoliated in the winter, the branching habit is so dense you really don't even see through that either. So that was picked specifically because it grows fast, it grows large, and even in the winter, its habit gives you the ability to have some screening. So those were the enhanced exhibits that we wanted to give you an idea of what we're proposing along there, give you a little visual of what that would look like. Some of these are repeated. There's, again, some other plants that weren't in this direct view, but of similar qualities that will be shown along the roadway. And so what you're going to get is a very natural planting. It's going to look like the road you drive down now, but better. It's going to have more enhanced qualities, more quantity of plants. It's going to provide a great native habitat. It's food and habitat for wildlife of plants that don't exist now, but should exist and will exist to, and it's going to give you sound and visual attenuation. So we think it's going to be an enhanced view of what you see now, and saving as many of the existing trees along the edge of the road as possible.
We're happy to answer any questions the board has on any of the materials we've submitted.
Now, could you go back to a couple of the views of the profiles? I wanted to see sort of, like what type of mix there is in terms of smaller, lower shrubs that might be flowering versus some of the taller trees. So that gives a good idea there.
So that was the way the whole thing was sort of designed, was once you have the wall, then we have the evergreen spine directly against the wall. So these will be, the densest, tall-growing things that will give you that permanent structure all year round. Then if there's existing trees, we're saving them. This would be more of an ornamental tree here. Some of them have shade trees, which would be more in line with the size of this when it gets larger. Then we have an ornamental, actually this is probably a small shade tree. Then this would be the ornamental tree, and then underneath we have a flowering shrub. So everything was layered to have the background of an evergreen tree, the frontage of a big shade tree, and then it gets kind of underplanted with an understory ornamental tree, and then under that you have the underplanting of shrubs, native grasses, so that's a layered effect, so that you're tearing down, having the gaps, so when you have the shade tree growing up, what's underneath it is still going to be planted. You're not going to really see through under. So it was done intentionally to fill in the space and give you layers to look, and seasonality. So these different things, some will flower in the spring, some will flower in the summer. You'll get fall color, you'll get berries, so you'll have a lot of visual interest throughout.
I'll have to go back and look at the planting schedules, but can you tell us generally what types of planting heights at year zero would you have for some of the trees in particular?
Yeah, so we have the first year that the shade trees will be a minimum of 10 to 12 at installation. Ornamental trees would be 8 to 10. Shade trees, there may even be 12 to 14. It depends on the variety that you get. You buy by caliper, and then some do a little bit better at a certain year than others. So I'm going to say the 10 to 14. And then the ornamental trees would be the 8 to 10 at planting. The evergreen trees are 6 to 8 at planting. And then shrubs are a variety of, 2 to 3 feet at planting, depending on the type of shrub it is, and grasses similarly.
Good.
Understanding that when things are planted, they do need to have space to mature. So there's which is why you saw in that 0 and 5 to 10, there's going to be space initially, because you don't want them to crowd each other out and then not develop into their full potential.
Right. And also on at least that first profile you showed, there are kind of slopes going up to the wall. So just talk a little bit about how the trees will do on that type of slope. How much of a slope is there going up to the wall?
The slope is maximized at 3-on-1. Most of the slope is a little bit less than that.
And there's planting techniques to plant on a slope. You definitely do, you kind of, you can increase a little bit in the front, you flatten, and then you create a well so that when you're watering, there's a well around the tree that sits so that it's not just running down the slope. So there's a technique to planting on the slope that we would, employ here.
Good. Any other questions on this part right here?
No, the exhibit's helpful, though.
Yeah, the graphics really help a lot.
Great, thank you so much.
Well, let's see, do you want to go through any of the other materials that you had submitted before we go to MJ's memo?
No, that was all we had in our open. We look forward to hearing about the memo and answering any questions.
Okay.
One of the questions at the public hearing was regarding the dam. I know you guys said nobody can inspect that. We got that letter and
So we did have a dam inspection. We don't have the formal report yet, but it was completed after the snow melt this past week. Everything that was found on site was consistent with the report that was previously done back in 2010. There are some minor maintenance items that will be addressed, but it's functioning consistently with how it has back when the DEC last inspected it in 2006, 2010.
where the dam is located.
Oh, yeah. Pull up the site plan.
Sure.
I don't remember seeing it.
Yeah, it's an important point. So for you all had a site visit.
We didn't resubmit plans.
So you all had a site visit, so I'm going to try and recall some of your memory here. But when you were at the site, if you're facing the lake with your back to the estate, it's to the right, to the willow trees. So it's to the east. And there is a very small bridge. The dam width is really almost a little bit larger than this runner here. That is the section that is the actual dam. I think some people might think that it's the other side where there's sort of a long walkway. That's not the dam location. The dam location is on the other side. It's on the east side of the lake. Sorry, west side of the lake.
Yeah, the full plan set isn't in here, but if I go to the overall key map, we can point you in that direction.
Oh, there it is.
Yep, so the outlet structure is over on the western side. This is where the water is controlled, and then it's released out to the west, which is why there's actually a jurisdictional wetland over on the west.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Dennis and Anisha, do you want to go through MJ's memo dated March 6th?
Thank you. So the applicants have been very responsive to our comments, and we're very appreciative of that. We have received correspondence from the appropriate involved agencies at this time. I believe we do not have any significant comments. My recommendation would be for the board to consider making a motion to have the planners draft the parts 2 and 3 of the EAF. Subsequent to that, we have 2 comments that were not part of our letter. One comment is that if you could provide just a summary or narrative explaining the net zero of the tree removal, that would be very helpful. And also providing an additional vantage point, or just working with the neighbors to see what would be the best solution for sightline H, maybe a 45-degree west of sightline H, just figuring out what works best there and providing us with some visuals similar to what you provided earlier for the other sightlines. So maybe, as I said, 45 degrees west of sightline H would be a very good vantage point to explore.
So are you thinking up the driveway? Is that about 45 degrees?
So not up the driveway, but where that orange, between where that orange is and that tennis court.
In this direction?
Yes, so yes, exactly.
As part of one of our earlier submissions, we did provide that sightline. We can repackage that for you.
That would be very helpful,
Sure.
thank you. So those are the 2 comments I had, and just that we have received correspondence from the appropriate involved agencies at this time. And we have no other significant comments, I believe, but I'll pass over to Dennis to see if he had anything significant.
Do you want to just mention quickly, we did get the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation letter, which was actually dated earlier, so we didn't really see it though until now.
Yeah, so we have received a letter from the Village of Fishkill, well, not a letter, correspondence from the Village of Fishkill. We've also received correspondence from Dutchess County Planning Department. We've also received correspondence from DOH and DEC and Parks.
And then just going through the rest of the comment, number 8 was the water body permit narrative, which they had provided. So it's up to the board to review that and make a determination if that addresses all of the requirements. Likewise, they provided narrative for the aquifer protection overlay. The sight lines we went through, and then the only comment that we had was number 12, which was the retaining wall, which they had gone through and kind of explained right where that, the highest point of that wall between the 18 and 22 foot, and how that's going to be mitigated. And that's all the comments that we had.
And just to touch upon the zero net tree removal, so there's about 150 or so trees per town code that are going to be removed as part of the project, and we're planting over 600 new.
So that would be helpful to have that written in like the narrative so that it's on the public record, separate from just you saying that.
Yeah.
I think that's in one of your documents somewhere.
It's in the Part 3 supplement already.
Perfect, thank you.
Dennis and Anisha, this is kind of directed to you, as you mentioned really similar things for the special use permit criteria that the planning board will need to go through, and then also the water course water bodies permit, and then, as you just mentioned, the aquifer protection overlay. I'm just wondering if you, as our consultants at MJ, can put sort of a preliminary thing together in memo form that would give the board some guidance on how we should be doing that when we get to that point.
Sure.
So not making our decision for us, obviously, because the board has to do that, but, and so the applicant has done a very nice job of their view of, how the project is meeting the special use permit in particular. That's a big one, but the others as well. But if you can kind of look at the criteria, look at what the applicant has done, and then just give us some guidance, that would be helpful.
Yes, no problem.
Okay, so if you can do that probably for the April meeting, that would be good. Thanks. All right, any questions from board members on MJ's memo?
No, do not.
Let's see here. Somewhere along the line, I think we might have asked about a cut and fill analysis for the amount of materials that would have to be moved around or cut out of the site. I don't remember seeing that. Has one been done?
It was previously provided.
Okay, so could you tell us about when that was so we'd know where to look for that?
I believe it was in our October submission, but I will confirm that, and I will let you know at the next meeting.
Okay, because one thing that I think the board would like to be able to get out of that would be, whether there are any loads of trucks either coming into the site or going out of the site with materials, and what numbers of trucks those would be. Is that kind of information provided in the analysis?
The number of construction trucks specifically is not in there. At this time in the planning stage, it's a little bit difficult to give exact numbers on that. It's really going to come down to the sequence of construction, but we can provide a general estimate on the length of time for that.
Yeah. That's all we would need at this point, I think.
It will also be very dependent on where the material is coming from and the availability of that material, which is hard to, judge at this point.
Have you made up your mind whether you're going to prefab it?
Yes, my question was asked, if you made up your mind on whether or not we're going to be prefabbing cabins and sort of top panel systems.
The intentional now is for cast concrete for the first floor, and then structurally insulated panels for the second floor. And then the cabins are all structurally insulated panels. So it's a panelized system. They come in 20-foot by 8-foot sections, and the panels will snap together for each of the cabins.
Okay,
So
that's for the recreation, that's for the big hall and the
Yeah, every building right now, the going strategy for the construction documents is going to be precast for the first floor, precast concrete, so that would all be delivered to site, dropped into place, and then we would be doing structurally insulated panels, which are 2 layers of plywood sandwiched together with high-density insulation, and then those go up like Legos. So everything would be mostly prefabricated off-site and brought to site. We don't really intend to have, just for feasibility of the construction and just site access, to have like people nailing studs and hammers every day. It's just not efficient for the way we're planning to construct and the timeline we're looking at. So it will be mostly precast off-site, brought to site and delivered.
Okay, and you also, the question was asked before, what type of driveway is going to be between everything? Have you made up your mind on that?
The driveway?
You know, I shouldn't say driveway, the road.
On the roadway material?
Internal roadway.
So the internal roadway, here I'll zoom out a little bit, is going to be a typical asphalt driveway per standard. It needs to support emergency access, fire truck apparatus, deliveries. As you get into, you can't see it here, but as you get into the cabin area, the fire loop that we installed, that will be installed, that is a gravel roadway, and that is only going to be used for emergency access. So all of the deliveries, the rear spine section will be typical asphalt, and then in the cabin area, as well as all of the golf cart paths, those are all going to be gravel.
Yeah, we had initially spec'd gravel. That was our initial intention. But after meeting with the fire department on site, it was specified that asphalt is required for that type of access, especially to the venue in the back of the site.
Yeah, hook and ladder's pretty good. Sorry.
He said the hook and ladder.
They are, all of the different surfaces will be designed for that specific loading.
We had an early meeting with the fire department on site, showed them the plans, worked through it. That's when the loop got involved into the project. There was a whole bunch of changes that came to the site plan from the fire department's consistency with the project, talking about heights and everything like that.
Are you going to be, this is really the fire department, are you going to be hooking up into the lake and access for the fire?
No, we're bringing water.
No, there's no plan for that. We're going to be bringing water to site.
Yeah, and just in terms of sprinklers, we were told by the fire department, the event center and the restaurant need to be sprinklered. Everything else should be okay without sprinklers.
There are a few remote cabins on the exterior that will need to be sprinkled as well, but the majority of the cabins do not need to be sprinkled.
While I'm looking for something, any other questions from board members at this point?
I did have a question. Is there anticipated, like, you're going to have events there, is it anticipated that, like, buses or, like, shuttles will be, because I saw there's, obviously there's parking, looks like it's for passenger vehicles, so where would, like, a bus or a shuttle, how would you address something like that?
Yeah, you can talk about it briefly from a traffic standpoint.
Sure. So there likely will be shuttles. There are only 80 cabins provided on site, so a safe assumption is that there will be some guests coming from other nearby hotels and establishments. You can't see it at the moment, but there is a turnaround and a circle and a drop-off area that was sized with a wider drop-off area specifically for guests coming from off-site.
Okay, of the EV stations, are there going to be any in the place, or are they going to have to go off-site?
We will likely bring some in. That hasn't been spec'd yet, but we did hear that comment from the board the last time we were here, and we are definitely going to consider putting some in.
We did also incorporate some single-row parking instead of only stacked parking in the valet areas that would be able to support the installation of some EV charging.
Are we forgetting anything?
What is the total number of golf carts that you intend to maintain and keep on the site at one time? I know it's not one per cabin, but I know there's...
It's less. I mean, we have plenty of space for two.
Yeah, right now we're planning on maybe having a total of about 20. Are you talking about golf carts specifically? Yeah, just to remind the board, we're not talking about a golf cart that you traditionally see at a golf course that only seats 2 people with some space on the back. These are more like golf cart shuttles. They typically seat between 12 to 16 passengers. They're all electric, they're quiet, and those are the types of shuttles that would be running around. So the maximum on property at any given moment might be 5 or 6. It's a very walkable property. We're going to encourage guests to walk. It's really for inclement weather, for passengers that need mobility, access, and things of that nature. But we don't intend to have, 100 golf carts running around.
If I remember, you're parking them underneath the restaurant. The
Correct.
restaurant?
Correct.
Or the-
We have parking both under the restaurant and the event center. There's additional parking for all those vehicles. All that stuff would be clear and out of sight under each of those two buildings. That's why they're all elevated up.
You know, if you keep on going, another couple of months, I'm going to get everything out of the door.
That's all right, we can keep reminding you, Fred. I found what I was looking for when the question about water came up. And this is referring back to an email from Paul Del Forno at Fishkill Water, I guess. And he's saying that the capacity of their water system is adequate to handle your development, but he's saying that there could be some challenges with how you connect to the system, and it might need a booster system of some sort due to your elevation. Has that been figured out yet?
That specific item hasn't been figured out, but we are committed to installing the infrastructure necessary to make sure we provide ample flow and pressure to the site to service all of the water needs.
All right, so that'll be something we'll need to continue working with our engineering people over here.
Yeah, as well as the Village Water Department and the Department of Health.
Let's see, I wanted to circle back to the valet parking lots again, and since those are items that the Zoning Board of Appeals will be looking at for variances as well, I just wanted to pose the question, and I think we've talked about this before, about we're looking at the possibility of either reducing the size a little bit more of those valet parking lots and or moving some of them a little bit farther back from the road. So I think that's something that might help in terms of some of the community impacts, or certainly things like noise and lighting that I know you've done a lot of work on, and we've reviewed those reports, but we have gotten continuing comments from the public about that, so that's probably something the zoning board will be asking about as well.
We reviewed that with the zoning board on site as well, as many of them did their site visits. Just to the south of lot 3 and 4, which is, I think, one of the main areas that we're talking about, because the other lots are across from town-owned green space and land.
Right.
One of the issues we do have is as you get further south, there is more and more exposed rock. And so the trade-off becomes, if we move that lot further south, now we're incurring blasting and other things to move that lot further south. It becomes more of a challenge and a trade-off, obviously. The other issue that we have is really up to the board's discretion if you're going to grant that reduction in parking simultaneous with removing some of those rows of parking spaces, then that's something, of course, we can do.
Good evening, everyone. Corey Chase with Dynamic Traffic. I just wanted to add, Mr. Chairman, that that was certainly at the forefront of our concern as well, and that was really what drove this to be a valet layout style. If we had just done South Park, we would have significantly more drive aisles. You'd have to have 360-degree circulation around all the parking spaces. So going to a valet system really allowed us to condense those parking lots to the greatest extent possible, eliminate those frivolous drive aisles, and just really be able to stack the cars in the best we could. As Alex said, we're certainly looking at the other concerns, providing the wall in addition to just the retaining wall, providing the parapet wall to screen the headlights, providing the landscaping as Marla described in front of the walls. But again, really going to that valet system allowed us to really squeeze the actual footprint of those parking lots to the greatest extent possible.
Got a couple of questions.
Good.
Is this mostly you're thinking that you're going to get individuals coming, driving, and everything? Are you ever going to have a situation where it might be a group and come with a bus? And
You mean to come into the site with a bus? Sure, that's possible. What's the...
No, I'm just wondering if that causes any kind of...
No, it's something that we've absolutely considered and prepared for with our drive aisles. And so entering the site, the bus with passengers, if they are coming together to stay, they would come to the welcome building the same as a vehicle would, and that bus would exit the property the same way as a traditional vehicle would.
And as far as like, you know, because once you get it going and once you're, whatever, the fact of deliveries and what kind of, you know, situation with that, if there's like, you know, like you don't want to have somebody come with a 30-foot tractor trailer that might have to deliver stuff like food or something, or it would be like, you know, I'm just wondering for the, you know, as far as the road and the anticipation of.
Yeah, let me answer from a traffic standpoint. I can answer from an operations standpoint, and you answer from a traffic standpoint first.
Yeah, certainly, and that's a great question. We consider that too. I mean, and Alex will echo this shortly, but you know, they're getting deliveries today to operate the facility today. We anticipate those deliveries are going to largely be in a similar fashion that they are today. This isn't a type of use where you're going to have, you know, several tractor trailers showing up each day. You know, the vendors that they utilize typically use smaller trucks, Sprinter vans, maybe a single unit box truck, things of that nature, you know, typical size of a refuse truck. So we have that dedicated delivery area, delivery access is located, you know, to the rear of the facility. So those deliveries will all occur on site. There's not a need for a delivery vehicle to back into the site, do a K-turn on the adjacent roadway network, anything like that. You know, that all those movements will occur internal to the site. They'll be able to turn into the site, execute all their maneuvers, and then egress. There's no backing in, backing back out onto the road, things of that nature. We all took that into consideration, so. We don't, unfortunately.
Because you can't see it in the image, but when you get down to the event center, there's a complete circle turnaround, so you can actually turn around there. So you'd come through the whole drive aisle, do your delivery at the restaurant portion, go down to the event center, turn around, and come back out without having to back up at all. That was the intention of how we laid it out.
And to remind the board as well, the location of that circle is set very far into the site, surrounded by steep slopes and undisturbed wooded areas to really buffer that location from potential sound.
Okay.
Yeah, and just on the size of the vehicles and the types of deliveries we would be getting, it would really be limited to three main categories: food delivery, laundry, and then trash removal. Anything else would be on a very, you know, sparse occasion if needed.
Any other questions, Bob? No, it's good for now. EJ? One thing I was going to mention is that since the public hearing was closed for the planning board on February 12th, and we've received additional comments that were submitted, and also we just received the transcript. I assume that you have a copy of the transcript. That was very helpful. Those are all available to the public now. They actually are on the town's website. You basically go to meetings and planning board meetings, and you go to the February 12th, 2026 planning board meeting, and all those documents, public comments, are under meeting minutes, if I understand that correctly. I think Debbie set that up. So those are available for the public to look at. So I just wanted to mention that. And speaking of public hearing comments, I did want to pose this to the applicant team. So I know that a lot of the things that were raised, well, maybe not a lot, but some of the things that were raised by the public during the public hearing and in the comment letters that were received were addressed to some varying degrees in the materials that you submitted. But what we really don't have yet, and I'm wondering if you could put something like this together, is what I guess we would call a public hearing comment and response document. Something that pretty succinctly, like an index almost, and something that you might find, heaven forbid, we're not going to end up with a final environmental impact statement, I don't think, but something in that way of formatting where, you know, the public comments received, some are substantive, some are not, and then the applicant's responses to those that are substantive. That would be very helpful. So, I mean, I did note a lot of answers throughout a lot of the materials, but for someone in the public, that's not probably somewhere where they're going to look for answers. So one of these kind of a summary public hearing comment and response document would be very helpful.
We had considered providing a very specific sort of question and answer type format for the board. The one thing that we were also just mindful of is not necessarily responding to one public comment or commentor at a time, as we didn't want to necessarily be combative to those types of comments that were made.
Sure.
So would the board prefer that we categorize the responses, as many of them were, there were a lot of duplicates and repeats of comments that were made.
Right.
So we took the approach of sort of taking all that, summarizing it in our way that we've provided, but we can certainly give those categories labels and then resubmit.
Yeah, you could do that. I think that's a fair way of doing it. And, you know, it's not like necessarily reiterating and repeating all the wording. If it was answered in, you know, the environmental assessment report, you can summarize the answer and refer to, you know, pages X, Y, and Z. But I think kind of in an indexing approach like that, it would really help the public figure out where their comments are located and what the responses.
We're happy to recategorize and resubmit.
Yeah, and it's not really a resubmission, it's just a supplemental submission, yeah. That would be very helpful. So, unless there are other questions from board members, we do have a suggestion from MJ that this might be an appropriate time for the board to consider requesting EAF Parts 2 and 3 to be drafted for the April 9th meeting. And I personally think that would be a very good idea.
Yes. Me too. Yeah, I would be willing to make a motion to that extent.
All right.
And I'll second it.
Anthony moves it, and Felix seconds it. Any further discussion? Any feedback from Dominic? We haven't heard much from you on this yet.
No,
Dominic.
no, and it seems to be moving along all on its own, so I don't have anything other to add, other than it's procedurally appropriate for you guys to consider that next step.
All right. So if no further discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That carries 7-0. So we look forward to seeing parts 2 and 3 at the April meeting. And we'll go from there.
May we request that the board consider tonight asking its consultants to also prepare a draft negative declaration for the board's consideration, knowing fully that you needn't adopt it, but we think that would form a good skeleton setup for the discussions that will take place as part of the part 2 and 3 discussions.
What does the board think about that? I was sort of thinking about holding off on that for now until we do see the EAF Part 2. I mean, we have the applicant's suggested EAF Part 3, which again is helpful, but it's the applicant's way of looking at it. So, I mean, we've done it both ways, but I think in this case there are so many things to go through.
Yeah, at this time, I believe we're comfortable drafting parts 2 and 3. I believe based on the public comments and some outstanding correspondence from involved agencies, I would suggest we hold off on drafting the neg deck. I think drafting parts 2 and 3 will be good at the next meeting.
Okay. Understood, and we will supply what you've requested, and we'll also provide references to, in matters that you've raised tonight, to materials that we've previously submitted, or perhaps include additional copies so that information will be ready at hand.
Oh, that would be fantastic.
Yeah. All right. We thank you very much for your consideration.
All right, do you have any other questions for us at this point? we're so early, we can... I knew I would get that. I knew Debbie would like that.
You woke me up that way.
Yeah.
We started right
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So that does it for the agenda. The next meeting is Thursday, April 9th, and a submission deadline of Wednesday, March 25th. Anything else that board members or staff would like to bring up?
Before we conclude tonight's meeting, I do want to introduce you guys to our new planner. His name is Colton. He's with MJ Engineering. He will be supporting me with the planning board support and any other support the town needs.
Oh.
He's an AICP certified planner as well, and he is looking forward to joining. I'm not sure if you want to say a few words, but
Yeah, why don't you come up to the podium and just tell us a couple... I'll give you a couple of ways.
on the spot.
Sorry, Colin.
Thank you for the introduction. I'm not going to take any more of people's time, and I'm glad to be here and happy to observe.
Listen, you don't understand that we're normally here till 11 o'clock.
Good meeting you. All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, second, all in favor? Aye.
Good night. Good night.